teachers of Reddit. How obvious is it when one student has a crush on a classmate? In middle school they just start trying to get on each other's nerves more and are usually overly smiley. The main problem comes when only one of them is smiley. I once intercepted a note from a boy to a girl that, roughly translated from French, said, "I get hard for you. Do I make you moist? I've done it before. Wanna do it?" And X200B. This was 8th grade English. Our Casanova wasn't the brightest bulb in the packet, but he had advanced visceral competencies. Depends on the age, but the signs are obvious as hell. Lots of staring, and not subvious but very obvious attempts at being near them. Visible disappointment when they are not put in the same group for group work. Jealousy in all forms. I have seen a kid hate a classmate for weeks because that classmate sat next to the kid's crush for morning meeting. Everything with students is obvious. I know who you have a crush on. I know when you and your friend got in a fight and are at the same today. I know when you are having a bad week. I know when you have lost motivation. I know when you are looking for attention, and I know when you want to be left alone. Some teachers use this information to make informed decisions, like sitting you next to your crush, cutting you slack that day, asking if everything is alright, etc. But I have seen some use it to be unfair to students. Edit. Thank you for the silver. I'm glad to hear some positive stories of caring teachers from people. I work at an alternative school with kids who have lots of trauma from their past. I think if you cannot be compassionate you should not be in this profession, but I understand many have had negative experiences with teachers who should not have taken the career path. It is 100% super obvious all the time, but I teach emotionally damaged teenagers. Seriously, please like and subscribe and comment something nice for your favorite Reddit slave. Super obvious. When a girl says a while laughing at a guy who is teasing her, or a guy goes out of his way to make fun of her or something from her, so she'll have to pursue him to get it back. It makes me 100% certain. There's a boy in my class whose voice hasn't changed yet, but every time he is talking to another girl from a different class, he is noticeably lowering his voice to sound deeper. Obvious signs are obvious. I once had a teacher tell me that my crush and I worked together well, and used him and I as an example for something. We ended up together, and she said I so predicted it. Seeing the reaction on her face was priceless, and I'll never forget it. So, apparently we were very obvious. Shout out to my high school econ teacher for noticing that me and a girl were into each other, constantly putting us in the same group. Straight up asking the girl if she had a boyfriend while I was in the room. Mrs. Anderson is the best wingman of all time. Not a teacher, but I had an amazing teacher. She knew I had a crush on this girl, and she might have known she had a crush on me. All high school assigned seating we were put next to each other. All projects we did together. She put us together for everything. I am marrying that girl in 4-5 weeks. Thanks Mrs. Perez. They start sitting next to each other. What's even more obvious is when one has a crush and the other isn't interested. I'm speaking strictly from the demographic from my own school I taught at, so I hope it's clear I'm not generalizing all teenagers here. But I've noticed when a girl is crushing and the guy isn't, he is more likely, but not always, to be more forward about telling her so. To the point, in 1 or 2 cases, of sometimes being openly cruel to her. The girls in the reverse situation act annoyed and will sometimes make their disinterest clear, but more often than not they grin and bear it and try to pretend the crush doesn't exist. That's all I've got. I was there 4 months. Former middle school teacher here. I actually told kids one year that if they wanted me to change their seating chart they could email me. This was to avoid potential conflicts or bullying. Instead, a girl asked me to put her next to the boy she liked. I did. I wanted to reward her for asking for what she wanted. I think my exact words were, reject it, girl. Unfortunately for her, he was not interested. They started hanging around each other a lot, always hugging, making lots of context for physical contact. Then they started holding hands, became very close to the point that you'd never see one without the other until they finally started dating. They were two of the most troublesome children, and to this day everyone is afraid of this relationship. I remember one time during an 8th grade field day hearing a bit of an altercation between a few kids. When I went over there I saw that this one very nerdy kid was chasing another boy around the football field, while a few other boys laughed and a girl was telling them to stop. Turns out what happened was that one of those boys was teasing the girl, like that kind of stupid teasing 8th grade boys do to girls they like, and that the nerdy kid, who also seemed to have a crush on this girl, stood up to the boy to defend her honor and wanted to fight him. So instead of fighting, the boy ran in circles while the nerdy kid chased him, furious and red in the face. It was very cringy. I got the vibe that the girl didn't mind the teasing from that boy and that the nerdy kid's crush was probably not reciprocated. I broke up the fight, partly because I wanted to save the nerdy kid from his 8th grade self. I think most of us have been in a situation as a teenager where we try to impress someone who doesn't feel the same way. I didn't want him to look back years later and be even more embarrassed by it had it gone on longer. Sadly, sometimes they get aggressive to get their crush's attention. I tried to ask this question, but instead of classmate, I wrote teacher. I was told the Wi-Fi was spotty in jail, which explains my lack of responses. Used to teach 6th and 8th grade science at an inner city school. I told all of my students their best chance at dating their crush was to be respectful. The 8th graders ignored me and proceeded to make fun of their crushes. The 6th graders though, they bought it. 11-year-olds were holding the door open and pulling chairs out for their crushes, being supportive and kind to one another. Cutest shit ever. Edit. One letter. Not a teacher, but I was completely oblivious as a kid. In 7th and 8th grade had a crush on a girl in class, and it wasn't until years later that I figured out she had been flirting with me, sitting on the desk in front of me, coming to me after class in the hallway to tell me she thought I was the smartest kid in class. I wasn't, and that was my response, followed by walking faster to get away from her. I remember there being other clear signs, but I have tried to put it behind me. We have mutual Facebook friends, so she popped up in my suggested friends at some point. She's still really ridiculously good looking. In the words of my teacher, who I recently saw during break in college now, when she decided to sit in your lap every day and started playing house with you instead of working, I kind of got the hint. How in God's name did you miss it? Apparently, the fact that this girl was so obvious while I didn't see it triggered her. She even ranted about it for a couple of minutes in one of her other classes before she realized that that was inappropriate. In my defense, the girl was actively trying to send mixed signals. A few years after I graduated HS, I ran into my geometry teacher. She vividly remembered me because I got a low C, but selected to retake her class because I really didn't learn geometry. Not her fault. Midway through the semester she actually saw the look on my face when I got it. We did a quick catch up and she asked me if Michelle and I ever got together. I looked at her puzzled and said no. Why would you think we would? She laughed at me and explained that it was brutally obvious to her, day one, that she liked me. Proceed to fill me in on everything she did that indicated she was into me. That whooshed right over my head as a stupid 10th grader. She said she saw her the first day of class walk in, stop for a second, and walk directly over to the desk next to mine and sit down. At that point you've chosen your desk for the semester. This class was the only time I would see her at school. Maybe in the halls every now and then. She would always ask me how I or the team did. Soccer / swimming / track / lacrosse / baseball. And be sure to congratulate me when my name got announced for winning / scoring. Even mentioned she went to the game and saw me play. She gave me a nickname that she used all the time. She saw when I would struggle and try to help me. My teacher loved this. She thought it was so cute. Made sure to walk out of the classroom next to me every time. She'd compliment me sometimes on clothes. To be fair, it was common knowledge she had a boyfriend at another school, so I didn't even think that this was anything more than her being friendly. I was also a dweeb that happened to be very athletically inclined. The folks I hung out with were not the popular crowd. Where she was, I didn't even hang out with my teammates. the jocks, but easily fit in with them and could approach the group. In my mind there were not enough mathematicians on earth to calculate how far out of early guy was. Well, not now, but when I was in high school a student and a substitute teacher had a relationship. It started off as him giving compliments every day, then after some time later they were kissing, and he would grab her ass in front of other students. Don't know how she was not fired or how they were never caught. Up until high school, and even then sometimes, it takes the form of harassing or picking on the person they are attracted to. It's more socially acceptable at that stage to mess with them than just express attraction. It's funny to watch TBH. Not a teacher, but my Spanish teacher somehow noticed my crush. I did know it at Spanish class with my crush. Also, my history teacher always placed me by my crush. Not creepy. And I started to guess that one teacher noticed. The spread it to other teachers. When they're in kindergarten they go from ignoring the other person to holding hands at recess and getting mad when they do not get out in the same play center together. Shoot, I need to know how obvious this is in an office setting with adults. Asking for a friend. Not a teacher, but as a student. I enrolled in a home economics as a senior to get the easy credits. I soon regretted not signing up for graphic design class, because the class consisted of teen moms and their soon-to-be fathers with only 17y/0 virgin me in the middle of the class. So yay. That is another clear sign that classmates had a crush on each other at one point. The obvious ones would be obvious, but many more silent crushes will go completely unnoticed. So the tempting answer would be it is obvious. But the truth is that it is less obvious than it seems. I'll tell you right now that when I had crushes in school, it was top priority that no one ever find out, especially the object of the crush. When your high school chemistry class has n desks and n+1 students, so someone at random has to sit on a lab bench for the lecture, but somehow you end up with n1 desks filled with students, one empty desk, and 2 students sitting together on a single lab bench. How can you be sure that the non-obvious ones just don't go unnoted? If the 2 kids are in your class in the same hour/class period, it does become pretty obvious. They get all nervous around each other. But if I'm being honest, teachers aren't really interested or concerned about that. They've got a job to do. When I taught HS, I never knew or cared about the gossip, unless it turned into a physical fight right outside my classroom, which was the farthest away from the security desk in the school, so it was a popular site for fights.